It started simple, like most bad decisions do. After a year of dating, Samantha began talking about moving in together. She said paying rent for two places was pointless. She said she wanted to build something real with me. I thought it sounded mature, even responsible. We had been happy for months, so why not take the next step? Her lease was ending, and my condo had plenty of space. It felt like the natural move for two adults in love. The first few weeks were pure bliss. She cooked dinner, laughed at my terrible jokes, and decorated the place with candles. She brought color into my quiet life. We watch movies, talk about dreams, and fall asleep holding hands. For the first time in years, I stopped worrying about the future. I started thinking about engagement rings. Maybe this was what real love looked like. But small cracks always start quietly. The first sign came when she stopped cooking. Then she began ordering takeout almost every night. When I asked why, she smiled and said she was too tired. Soon, cleaning became optional too. Dishes stacked in the sink, clothes on the couch, and makeup stains everywhere. At first, I brushed it off. Everyone gets lazy sometimes, right? But the excuses piled up faster than the mess. Then came the job talk. One morning, over coffee, she announced she had quit. She said working retail was beneath her potential. She wanted to focus on becoming a social media influencer. She said she would make more money once her brand took off. I didn't argue, but something inside me sank. The next day, she bought a new camera and ring light with my credit card. She said it was an investment. Soon, our living room turned into a studio. Every corner had tripods, makeup kits, and piles of clothes. She filmed for hours, then scrolled through her phone for likes. I went to work early, came home late, and paid for everything. Groceries, bills, gas, her beauty products, even her gym clothes. She always forgot her wallet. Every dinner out became my responsibility. She'd post photos of fancy meals and caption them, "Hard work pays off." The irony wasn't lost on me. When I mentioned splitting expenses, she laughed. She said love wasn't about money. She said I should be proud to support her dreams. That night, I stared at the ceiling and realized the truth. I wasn't in a partnership. I was funding someone else's fantasy. Still, I tried to believe she'd change. I told myself it was just a rough patch. That's the thing about denial. It feels a lot like hope. But hope doesn't pay rent. And love doesn't clean dirty dishes. I just didn't know yet how far she would push it. Or how far I'd go to push back. By the second month, everything started to fall apart. Samantha no longer pretended to help around the house. Dishes piled up like a monument to laziness. Clothes scattered everywhere. Makeup dust coated the bathroom counter. The woman who once bragged about independence now acted like a guest. Except she wasn't paying for her stay. Every bill, every grocery run, every streaming service, my card handled it all. She spent her days taking selfies and editing them endlessly. She'd sit for hours under bright lights, chasing digital validation. When I came home, she greeted me with complaints, never affection. She'd sigh dramatically and say her creative process was exhausting. I started feeling like a stranger in my own home. Once, I found her ordering designer clothes worth hundreds online. When I asked who'd pay for that, she smiled sweetly. "You make good money, Ethan. Don't be cheap." That sentence burned into my mind like a scar. Her entitlement was breathtaking. She even started calling my condo our place. But our meant my effort, my money, her comfort. She contributed nothing but chaos. I worked 10-hour days, managing investment portfolios and deadlines. She spent 10-hour days on TikTok and coffee breaks. One night, I came home late, starving, exhausted, and hopeful for peace. Instead, the kitchen looked like a hurricane hit it. Dirty pans, sauce splattered on the stove, trash overflowing. Samantha sat on the couch, scrolling her phone, eating takeout. I asked gently if she could help clean up tomorrow. She rolled her eyes and said, "You're better at cleaning than me." That was the moment something inside me snapped a little. But still, I said nothing. Instead, I quietly cleaned while she watched TV. Every wipe of the cloth felt like scrubbing away my self-respect. A week later, she asked if we could go on a vacation. She had already posted about it online, told her friends it was happening. When I asked how she'd pay, she shrugged. "It's only a few $1,000s, babe. You can afford it." She said it like ordering a pizza. My hands trembled with silent anger. How could someone so beautiful be so blind to effort? But anger wasn't useful yet. I realized I needed to think, not react. That night, lying in bed, I made my first mental note. If she thought she could use me forever, she was mistaken. The woman beside me wasn't a partner anymore. She was a burden dressed in perfume and self-importance. I began to observe her patterns carefully. Every excuse, every manipulation, every lie about money. She talked about our future, while I paid for her present. The imbalance had become impossible to ignore. Still, she acted like nothing was wrong. She believed her charm could erase responsibility. I smiled through the frustration, pretending everything was fine. But inside, something darker was forming. Not hatred, not bitterness, just cold calculation. Because love had ended, and strategy had begun. It happened on a Thursday night, one I'll never forget. I had just finished 3 brutal days of non-stop work. 14 hours a day, saving clients millions, barely sleeping. All I wanted was peace, food, and silence. But when I opened the door, I froze in disbelief. My apartment looked like a war zone. Pizza boxes, spilled drinks, and clothes covered the floor. Makeup stains ruined the white couch I'd saved months to buy. The kitchen sink overflowed with dirty dishes. The air reeked of perfume, alcohol, and cheap takeout. And in the middle of it all, Samantha and her 3 friends laughed loudly. They were drinking my expensive whiskey, using my things like it was theirs. My laptop was open, my Netflix account still playing a show. It felt like I'd walked into a stranger's house. I stood there, silent, until Samantha finally noticed me. She turned, tipsy and smiling, holding a glass of scotch. "Oh hey, babe, we're celebrating Madison's engagement." She said it like this chaos was completely normal. I looked around at the wreckage and clenched my jaw. "You destroyed my home for a party I didn't know about." Samantha rolled her eyes, swaying slightly. "Relax, Ethan. Don't be such a buzzkill, it's just a girls' night." One of her friends giggled and said, "She told us you're super chill." They all laughed like I was some joke in my own house. That laughter hit me harder than any insult ever could. "You need to clean this mess up and leave," I said coldly. Samantha crossed her arms, defiant. "I live here too. I can invite whoever I want." My voice dropped lower. "You don't pay rent, you don't buy groceries, you are a guest." That's when she said the line that ended everything. "If you want a clean house, hire a maid. I'm not your servant." Her friends burst into laughter again. Something inside me went still, completely calm. "Good idea," I said softly. "Maybe I will." She smirked, thinking she'd won the argument. But she had no idea I'd just decided her fate. While they laughed and drank, I began to clean quietly. Every piece of trash I picked up wasn't for her, it was for me. It was the moment I stopped being her victim. I realized I didn't need to yell or beg anymore. Revenge didn't need noise, it needed planning. As I scrubbed the counter, I built the first pieces of a plan. If she wanted to treat me like help, I'd show her what happens when help quits. By the time she stumbled to bed, drunk and oblivious, my mind was clear. I knew exactly what to do. No arguments, no drama. Just cold, perfect execution. The kind of revenge that leaves no scars, only silence. And by morning, Samantha would have no idea that her countdown had already begun. I started executing the plan the next morning with quiet precision. First call went to Ryan, my friend who'd survived a nasty divorce and needed a place to regroup. He answered immediately and agreed to move in by the weekend. Next, I called Carlos, my cousin who runs a landscaping crew and needed storage for winter gear. Carlos loved the idea of using my garage as a staging area and agreed to pay monthly. Then I rang an old college friend who now practices real estate law for a quick consultation. He confirmed that, because Samantha wasn't on the lease, I could legally revoke her residency with proper written notice. I listened, asked for exact language, and thanked him for the precise instructions. While Samantha lounged upstairs recovering from her late night, I photographed and inventoried everything in the spare room. I took pictures of electronics with serial numbers and receipts where I had them. I labeled items that clearly belonged to her and separated them from what was mine. Everything was documented and time-stamped on my phone for legal protection. That afternoon, I ordered boxes and packing materials online and scheduled a pickup for the weekend. I texted Ryan the move-in plan and told him to bring heavy lifting friends. He replied with a thumbs up and a promise to be there early. On Friday morning, Samantha left for a hair appointment unaware the house had already shifted. By noon, Ryan arrived with 2 of his buddies and a truck. They moved swiftly and professionally, assembling a bed and setting up a workout area in the spare room. Carlos's crew rolled in shortly after with a pallet of equipment they stored in the garage. Their diesel trucks idled as gear was unloaded, creating the morning racket I knew Samantha would hate. We worked in silence, efficiently packing her clothes and props into labeled boxes. I placed anything that looked like a business asset in one area and personal items in another. My goal was tidy documentation, not chaos. When Samantha returned, the living room looked like a small moving hub with stacks of neat boxes. Her face went pale as she realized what had happened. Ryan greeted her calmly and explained he was the new roommate contributing rent and half the utilities. She sputtered, anger and confusion fighting across her features, while I stayed composed. I handed her a written notice with the exact legal language my friend had advised, dated and clear. She ranted, cried, and accused me of betrayal, but the document stood silent and immovable. Over the next days, she tried manipulation, public posts, and phone calls to anyone who might help her. None of it changed the facts I had prepared and the people who now supported me at home. I watched her scramble and felt a sober calm settle over me like dawn. Everything I did was precise, justified, and final. The first morning after Ryan moved in was glorious chaos for everyone but me. His alarm screamed at 5 a.m., followed by the clatter of weights hitting the floor. Heavy metal music shook the walls as he started his workout routine. Down in the garage, Carlos's crew arrived right on time. Diesel engines rumbled, tools clanked, and laughter filled the early morning air. By the time the sun rose, my once quiet home sounded like a construction site. Samantha stumbled out of the living room wrapped in a blanket, eyes red and furious. She glared at Ryan, who greeted her cheerfully while doing push-ups. "Can you stop making so much noise?" she snapped. He smiled without looking up. "Can't skip the grind. Discipline builds character." Her only response was a groan before she slammed the bathroom door. I drank my coffee slowly, savoring the poetic justice in every sound. That was just day 1, and she already looked exhausted. Every morning after, it got worse. The alarm, the weights, the trucks, the voices. It was relentless, and it was perfectly legal. Ryan never complained. Carlos's workers never slacked. They followed my rules, paid their share, and respected the space. Samantha, however, grew more desperate with every sleepless night. She started leaving dirty dishes everywhere, thinking it would bother us. Ryan simply washed them with a grin, humming loudly the whole time. She accidentally spilled coffee on the counter. He cleaned it before it dried and thanked her for adding aroma to the morning. Her psychological warfare fell flat against his unshakable discipline. Soon she stopped trying to fight and began sulking on the couch. When she wasn't glaring, she was posting online about her toxic living situation. Her followers left sympathy comments, but none sent money or help. I stayed silent, never reacting, never explaining. The less I said, the more control I had. One evening, she tried bribing Ryan with cash to skip his workouts. He refused politely, saying consistency was priceless. Her eyes filled with tears she thought would change something. They didn't. By the third week, the dark circles under her eyes told the story better than words. Her glamorous influencer facade was cracking. She no longer filmed content, no longer smiled at her phone. She looked like someone trapped in a life she didn't understand. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. But then I remembered the months of disrespect and manipulation. Now she finally knew what discomfort felt like. Every morning noise, every clang of metal was a reminder. Actions have consequences, even for the beautiful ones. Ryan and I shared silent smirks over breakfast as she stomped around half asleep. The atmosphere had changed completely. For the first time in months, I felt peace returning. And beneath that peace, something colder, satisfaction. She was still there physically, but her power over me was gone forever. 3 weeks into this new routine, I decided it was time for the final step. Samantha looked drained, her eyes dull, hair messy, voice always sharp with irritation. She barely left the couch, except to complain or scroll through her dying social feed. That was when I met Emily through a dating app. She was a nurse, calm, intelligent, and refreshingly grounded. We'd been talking for a week before I invited her over for dinner. When she arrived, the apartment smelled of garlic and wine, everything perfectly set. I greeted her warmly, and then gestured toward the couch. "Emily, this is Samantha," I said. "She's my ex, currently between places." Emily smiled politely, though confusion flickered in her eyes. "Oh, that must be stressful," she said gently. "I hope things work out for you." Samantha froze, her jaw tightening as she realized what was happening. Dinner went perfectly. Emily laughed at my jokes, complimented my cooking, and helped clear the dishes afterward. Samantha sat silently on the couch eating cereal from a plastic bowl, seething. When Emily and I disappeared into my bedroom to watch a movie, the tension snapped. Through the thin walls, I could hear Samantha packing and muttering angrily. The next morning, Emily made breakfast with ingredients she'd brought herself. She insisted on washing the dishes before leaving for work. As soon as the door closed behind her, Samantha exploded. "You're seriously bringing another woman here, while I'm still living in this house." I stayed calm, sipping my coffee. "You're not living here, Sam. You're staying here. Big difference." Her voice cracked with rage. "After everything we've been through, you replace me with her." "No," I said evenly. "I replaced you with peace and self-respect." She accused me of humiliation, betrayal, emotional cruelty. Then came her desperate attempt to regain control. "I want half of everything we bought together. Furniture, decor, all of it." I laughed quietly. "Show me one receipt with your name on it." Her silence was all the answer I needed. 2 days later, her father showed up with a rental truck. He looked embarrassed and tired, apologizing for her behavior. He helped her pack while she cried, pleaded, and made empty promises. "I'll change, Ethan. I'll get a job. I'll pay rent. Please don't do this." I shook my head, unmoved. "You had every chance to change. You just never thought I'd stop caring." When the last box was loaded, she stood at the door with tears streaking her face. "You'll regret this," she said. "You'll never find someone like me." I smiled faintly. That's the whole point. As the truck drove away, a silence filled the house, heavy but liberating. For the first time in months, there was no tension, no noise, no lies. Ryan and I celebrated with beers and laughter echoing through the clean apartment. Later that night, I texted Emily to thank her for dinner and honesty. For the first time, I felt something genuine again, something real. Revenge hadn't been about pain. It had been about freedom. A month passed, and life felt lighter than it had in years. Samantha moved back to her parents' house, posting fake smiles online. Her new beginning didn't fool anyone. Rumor said she got a retail job and had to do chores again. The girl who once said cleaning was beneath her now scrubbed floors daily. Her follower count dropped as fast as her attitude. Meanwhile, my home was finally peaceful. Ryan paid rent on time, cleaned his space, and cooked breakfast on weekends. Carlos's crew still came early, but now their noise sounded like progress. Emily and I kept seeing each other, slow and natural, no games, no lies. She always offered to split bills, always said thank you. I started to laugh again, to sleep again, to live again. Sometimes I thought about Samantha, but never with anger. Just quiet disbelief that I once called that chaos love. Maybe she'd learned something from all this. Maybe not. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. Because I'd finally learned my own lesson too. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's peace, earned one clean morning at a time.